I'm Mike Quincy, and this is the video review of the 2025 Nissan Kicks. This redesigned second-generation small SUV is now larger, more powerful, and for the first time, available with all-wheel drive. We're also pleased that this new model gets a whole bunch of standard active safety and driver assistance features. Indeed, this small hatchback has grown up. And the funny part is, we actually have a Route 66 nearby where we're filming this right now, so we can certainly get our Kicks on Route 66. True story, you know? But perhaps the number one selling point is its low price. It's among the lowest cost SUVs in the US. For our test program, we bought a 2025 all-wheel drive SV model. The final assembly point for the Kicks is Aguascalientes, Mexico. The SV's base price is $25,330. We only added a couple of small options, such as splash guards and floor mats. And with the $1,390 destination charge, the total came to $27,160. So the Kicks level of fit and finish is really pretty good, again, considering the relatively low entry-level price. Now, we've got a nice display here of dual screens for the infotainment system, as well as the driver information screen. This does look really high-tech, pretty modern. We're also pretty impressed that the Kicks has a nicely soft padded upper dash, exposed stitching. This part of the mid-dash area is really soft to the touch, kind of unexpected and actually pretty nice. There's also a wood grain finish here in the center console. The center console, this is something we don't always find on cars, even costing a lot more money than the Kicks, is again nicely stitched. There's a little bit of padding for the driver's right knee, and that's really kind of the good news we've got going here. The bad news is, not unlike a lot of cars in this price segment, the window sills are pretty hard to the touch. You don't want to rest your elbow on that because it's kind of clunky. And you know, for goodness sakes, how much would it cost Nissan to include some kind of a fabric wrap around the steering wheel? We'd love to see like a leather wrap. If you can't afford leather, you go for the leatherette, but something other than just plain plastic. This steering wheel is probably the biggest bummer of this interior. So the driving position is kind of a cross between a regular car and an SUV. A lot of SUVs have a more chair-like position in terms of the driver's seat relative to the floor. With the Kicks, the driver's legs are gonna come out a little bit more at an angle as opposed to being more upright. I'm about 5'10" and still have a fair amount of headroom. There isn't too much center console intrusion. However, there is the stitching right here on the driver's elbow pad for the little storage area. This exposed stitching might rub you the wrong way. So the Kicks front seats are fine for short drives, but if you're going on longer road trips, you'll probably want a wider base as well as lumbar adjustments. The seat back is a bit narrow, and a number of our drivers complained that it really made their backs uncomfortable. The rear seats have some minor sculpting and are a touch firmer than the front buckets. There's good legroom with large underseat space for tucking feet, although headroom is a bit limited. Most of the controls are pretty simple to use. If you've driven a Nissan product recently, a lot of this will seem familiar. We like that the center screen has very clear graphics and icons, easy to swipe to get to the different menus. The climate controls are a bit low in the center console, not always easy to see and reach. Really nice to see a rotary volume knob as well as the ability to go forward or back in all your music tracks. However, the start-stop button is tucked underneath the climate controls. It's a little hard to see at first. And when you put the Kicks into drive, you really have to look around the shifter to adjust the drive mode button. Interior storage is pretty generous. There's a nice rubber-lined phone charger, and these cup holders are enormous. You can see it just easily holds this bottle without any problem, but it can probably handle an entire big gulp cup. However, the storage bin in between the front seats is absolutely tiny. It'll hold a pack of tissues. So the rear cargo area is pretty useful. It's a wide opening. What you've got here, though, is kind of interesting. So you lift up this bottom panel, is there's all these extra storage compartments tucked underneath, as well as a tire mobility kit. This is when you get a flat tire, and there's these chemicals that you shoot into your blown out tire that might get you to a place where you can get it changed. Not having a spare tire is not unusual these days, but I gotta say that the cover for this compartment is really flimsy. This is certainly an area, it seems to me, where Nissan saved a lot of money. Since this is not an expensive car, it doesn't have a power-operated rear gate, so you do have to manually push this down. It's a little heavy, but not too bad. Now we're out driving on Consumer Reports test track, and let's talk about the powertrain. The Kicks is powered by a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It makes 141 horsepower. The Kicks is EPA rated at 31 miles per gallon combined for the front-wheel drive model and 30 miles per gallon combined for the all-wheel drive versions. But before you get excited that the new Kicks makes a whole 19 more horsepower than the last model, keep in mind that it also weighs 300 pounds more than the last Kicks we tested. So all that extra horsepower really adds up to some tiny ponies. This is a pretty modest power plant. It delivers, well, let's call it leisurely acceleration. It's also hooked up to a continuously variable transmission, and it makes things get pretty buzzy in here, especially when you need a little power boost. Which brings us to the Kicks' overall noise discussion. This is a loud car. Road noise, wind noise, that powertrain with a little 4-cylinder engine and CVT, and well, this is not a calm and quiet cabin. Nissan says it added extra sound deadening material to this Kicks, but we don't think the company went far enough. The ride is stiff, busy, pretty uncomfortable. The SV model, which is the one that we're testing, has 17-inch wheels, and normally you'd think a large wheel, say an 18, 19, or 20-inch wheel, would really degrade any vehicle's ride. The SV17s still allow a lot of bumps to come through to the cabin. And this, maybe you'd think, is kind of par for the course for a budget-minded car. And in that way, the Kicks kind of lives up to its price tag. The firm suspension makes the Kicks feel pretty responsive through turns. It actually feels pretty tossable, pretty playful. And this is an area where the budget price is kind of tossed out the window, because while this isn't Mazda Miata levels, it is somewhat entertaining to drive. The seeing out of the Kicks isn't too bad. The front pillars here, which often is referred to as the A-pillars, they're kind of thick, and when you're going to make a turn, you sometimes have to sort of look around them. They kind of swoop back at you. More of a styling theme than anything, but it doesn't help the outward visibility. The side windows are reasonably tall, and as the case with a lot of small SUVs, the rear pillars are very thick, although there's a tiny side window that might help the view a little. The new Kicks comes standard with a whole lot of standard safety features, everything you need, nothing you don't. We're also super pleased that adaptive cruise control is standard on every trim line. That's not always the case, even with some expensive European cars. So the Kicks makes for a pretty cheerful, kind of a fun little city runabout. The previous Kicks was way more entry level. This new model is much more substantial. So that's our video review of the 2025 Nissan Kicks. To see all the results of our testing, as well as competing subcompact SUVs, check out consumerreports.org.